In the 5th year of my marriage to Daniel, our marriage certificate expired. The Marriage Investigation Bureau came to ask if Daniel and I were willing to renew the contract. If both parties agree, the marriage would continue for another 5 years. But if even one person refuses, the marriage would automatically be voided. With a blank face and a tone of indifference, Daniel told the investigator, "I'm willing to renew." I looked at him. Since the day we got married, I rarely saw him smile. Before the investigation began, I had overheard him calling Angelica, asking if she was going to renew her marriage contract with her husband this time. I didn't know what Angelica said, but after hanging up, Daniel sat on the couch like a wooden statue for the entire evening. Then today, he chose to renew the marriage with me. He was so certain I would never leave him, so confident that I'd always be the fallback option he could rely on. I looked at him. I don't know why I smiled. Then I turned to the investigator and said, "Sorry, I'm not renewing." Chapter 1. As soon as I said that, Daniel froze. It was as if he had never imagined hearing anything from me other than I do. In his mind, just hearing himself say "I'm willing to renew" should have been enough for me to be overwhelmed with gratitude. His face darkened. He asked, "Robin, what did you just say?" I looked him in the eyes and repeated every word slowly and clearly. "Sorry, I'm not willing to renew." Daniel stood there, his dark eyes fixed on me, his lips pressed downward, fists clenched at his sides, an expression of restrained rage. Of course, I didn't flatter myself into thinking Daniel was angry because he cared about me. His fury stemmed from the blow to his ego, from the public humiliation of me saying no, and from that feeling of being defied when something he thought he completely controlled suddenly acted outside of his expectations. The investigator wasn't surprised by any of this and quickly made a note in her logbook. To ensure accuracy, she confirmed one more time before asking me to sign, "Ms. Robin, once you choose not to renew, we will process the annulment of your marriage to Mr. Daniel. If you do not change your decision within 1 business day, the annulment will take full effect. Are you sure about this?" I believe I looked quite calm. I nodded and said, "I'm sure." The investigator nodded too, writing while she spoke. "Then this week will serve as a mandatory cooling-off period for you and Mr. Daniel. During this time, the two of you are not allowed to live together. Do you need us to arrange alternate accommodation?" "No, I've already found a place." She let out an acknowledging mem, and continued, "All right. In 1 week, our staff will return for a final confirmation. If both parties still stand by their current decisions, the annulment will be finalized immediately. If either party changes their mind, we will proceed with the relevant process." She looked up and asked in a formal tone, "Ms. Robin, do you require moving assistance?" Moving assistance was a euphemism during the legal reform of the marriage laws. There had been incidents where women who refused to renew were assaulted or abused during their departure. So now, the Bureau offers all women in the situation protection services. Officially, it's called moving assistance, but the real purpose is to ensure women's safety during the cooling-off period. Of course, in some cases, it's the man who moves out. This house was Daniel's personal property before marriage. After getting married, I used my own money to buy a small apartment downtown. So naturally, I should be the one to leave. No matter how angry Daniel was, he wouldn't dare lay a hand on me. I shook my head and said, "No, thank you." "All right." The investigator closed her notebook and said before leaving, "Then the cooling-off period starts now. You have 12 hours to vacate the residence. If after 24 hours it's detected that you and Mr. Daniel are still cohabiting, the cooling-off period will be extended by a day. If the extension exceeds 3 days, the annulment application will be voided. Of course, if you encounter any resistance or danger during this period, you can contact us at any time for assistance." I nodded, thanked her, and politely saw her out. When I closed the door and turned around, Daniel was still standing where he was, like an ice sculpture frozen in the middle of the living room. He exuded a chill that filled the entire space. I had no idea what he was thinking. As the door clicked shut, he suddenly looked up and shot me a glance. That look was bone-chilling. His eyes were pitch black, unreadable, devoid of any emotion. He simply sneered and asked, "Robin, what the hell do you mean by this?" I looked at him and said, "Sorry, Daniel, I didn't talk it over with you in advance, but I really don't want to renew this marriage anymore." His chest rose and fell rapidly. He was clearly pissed but still trying to hold it together. He looked down on me from above, sneering coldly. "Who do you think you are? You don't want to renew? Fine. You think I actually care?" Then he let out another scornful chuckle. "Hope you don't come crawling back during the 7-day cooling off period, begging me to take you back." Daniel said that for a reason. We'd had a major breakup once before. I was the one who ended things. And of course, I was also the one who went back to him asking to reconcile. So what he said today was clearly meant to mock me. A passive-aggressive reminder not to repeat the past. I smiled faintly and didn't say anything. Seeing my reaction, his face darkened even further. His lips twitched as if he wanted to say something, but he held it back. It was clear my decision not to renew the marriage had struck a serious blow to young Master Daniel's pride. He'd always acted like he didn't care much about me, but now he looked like he wanted to rip me apart, as if I had done something utterly unforgivable. To be fair, I did handle this poorly. I hadn't given him any warning. The truth is, I only made the final decision not to renew quite recently, just a month before this marriage census. I'd nervously asked Daniel if he was willing to renew. His reply was full of smug arrogance. He gave me a sideways glance and said, "What? Are you afraid I won't renew?" Then he laughed. "Well, you better behave yourself this month. Maybe I'll think about it next month." I've always treated Daniel well. It's part of who I am. I'm someone who instinctively takes care of others. That probably has a lot to do with how I was raised. My adoptive parents were both deaf-mute. So ever since I was little, whether I meant to or not, I took care of everything and everyone around me. That's how I've treated Daniel these 5 years. Daniel once told me, "Robin, you're made for marriage." Made for marriage, that's not a compliment. But back then, I convinced myself he didn't mean it the wrong way. That he said it without thinking. I thought I could keep pretending it didn't matter. Until recently. Daniel probably never realized I was at home that day and overheard his phone call to Angelica. I had a fever and was half asleep in bed, struggling to get up for water. I stumbled into the living room and saw him sitting on the couch, deep in a call. He hadn't turned on the lights. His eyes were downcast. He looked both disappointed and full of anticipation, but his voice tried to sound nonchalant as he asked, "Angelica, for this year's marriage census, are you going to renew with your husband?" I didn't hear what she said, but I saw the smile freeze on his face. It was as if the woman on the other end of the call were standing right in front of him. That fake smile stayed frozen on his lips. Even after the call ended, that ridiculous curve on his lips remained. He sat there gripping the phone, staying on that sofa for the entire night. He didn't even realize I was home. I didn't come out, just stood quietly in the corner of the hallway and watched him sit there heartbroken the whole night. When I first got together with Daniel, I didn't know there was someone else in his heart. He was the one who pursued me, and he'd seemed genuinely enthusiastic. He was handsome, from a good family. I was just an ordinary person, even though I reminded myself over and over again not to fall too hard. Like that saying goes, if love could be controlled, it wouldn't be called love. I still fell for him in the end. After we got together, his attitude cooled off. But I thought that was just how all couples were. He'd post pictures of me on all his social media platforms with pride, use those cheesy matching profile icons with me, shower me with gifts on every holiday, and take photos of me so he could post public displays of affection on every festive occasion. Although every time after posting, he would obsessively stare at his phone as if his soul had wandered off. I never thought anything was off. The truth came out in our 3rd year together, when I overheard one of his friends ask him, "Hey, did you hear? Angelica's getting married." That was when I found out he had always carried a torch for his childhood sweetheart, someone from a family as well off as his. She was aloof and emotionally distant, completely focused on academics. She had left Daniel behind to study abroad, and eventually started dating a like-minded senior from her research lab. I heard his friend continue, "Angelica's getting married. And now you're proposing? Marriage isn't a game. Are you sure you want to go through with this?" Daniel looked dejected then. He gave a self-deprecating laugh and said, "Who I marry doesn't matter. I don't love any of them anyway." The very next day, I broke up with Daniel. He didn't ask why. He just shrugged indifferently and said, "All right, if that's what you want." Later, I found out that when Angelica had broken up with him to chase her dreams abroad, Daniel had done everything he could to win her back. Even now, his best friends still tease him about it. The proud young master Daniel, who never bowed his head to anyone, had humbled himself to the bone. He was willing to do long distance, willing to fly back and forth between the US and China every week. He even considered giving up his education in China just to follow Angelica overseas, just so she wouldn't leave him. But before his family could even seriously oppose him, it was Angelica who coldly and impatiently told him, "Are you done with the drama? I'm going abroad to focus on my research. You can't even get into a good university there. So tell me, are you really coming to be with me? Or do you expect me to waste my time babysitting you? Daniel, I don't have time to play house with you. Can you grow up already and stop being so childish?" Back then, Daniel was still a boy who believed in throwing himself into love without hesitation. He stubbornly went through the visa process and followed Angelica abroad. But less than a year later, he came back to China. This was something else I found out later. Aside from not being able to adjust to the environment, there was also a deep emotional disconnect between him and Angelica had taken quite a liking to one of her senior colleagues at the lab. Daniel came back utterly heartbroken. But then again, as a rich young heir, his cost of trial and error was basically zero. No matter what choices he made, life always offered him endless second chances. He got into a top university in China and became my classmate. At the time, I had no idea why Daniel was pursuing me. It wasn't until much later that I realized it was because Angelica had gotten together with her lab senior. And Daniel, in his moment of despair, needed a girlfriend to distract himself and lick his wounds. I was the most suitable person for him at that moment. Pretty, good grades, good personality, someone who could help him regain face on social media. Most importantly, I came from a modest family background. Girls like that often have a strong sense of pride, so if he ever wanted to dump me in the future, he could be sure I wouldn't cling or make a scene. After learning the truth, I broke up with him. Daniel wasn't wrong. I really was the type of girl with a strong sense of dignity. If he ever wanted to leave me one day, I'd absolutely never chase after him. But life has a way of mocking plans. Later, my family had an accident. During the time when my adoptive parents were critically injured in a car crash, it was Daniel who helped me through everything. By then, some time had passed since our breakup. I was drowning in my first job after graduation, overtime was a daily routine, and sleepless nights were the norm. So when I got the call about the accident, the combination of exhaustion, low blood sugar, and emotional shock made me faint on the spot. My colleague took me to the hospital and called Daniel, because I had forgotten to change his name in my contacts. Daniel came. That's the kind of man he was. No matter how messy or ugly our breakup had been, he still carried himself like a perfect gentleman. When he heard that his ex was in trouble, he rushed to the hospital right away. After that, he accompanied me back to my hometown and helped me sue the driver who caused the crash. My adoptive parents were in the ICU then, and the staggering daily medical expenses were all covered by him in advance. When they didn't make it, he stayed by my side to help with the funeral arrangements too. He was considerate, meticulous, calm. That's the kind of elegance and composure that these rich young men were raised with. At the time, as I looked at him, I thought to myself, it's him. It has to be him. Other than not loving me, he has no real flaws. And after stepping into the adult world, I admit, my way of thinking had changed drastically too. The old me was black and white. If I liked someone, I liked them. If I didn't, I didn't. I had no room for gray areas. But after breaking up with Daniel, I tried dating other men. Most of them were calculating, considering my family background. The fact that my adoptive parents were both deaf-mute. To them, I was just someone to short-term date. Someone pretty enough to show off for a while. Even the so-called promising young men my boss introduced me to, those were just favors exchanged through matchmaking. So I began to ask myself, does love really matter that much? For someone like me, grieving the death of her parents, buried under immense work pressure, it didn't seem all that important anymore. So I asked Daniel, can we get back together? He froze for a moment. Then we got back together. Half a year after Angelica got married, we got married too. And that brings us to today. Chapter 2. Daniel left. After I chose not to renew our marriage, he stood in the middle of the living room, chest heaving with anger. like he had nowhere to release it. He couldn't help but kick the sofa, then shot me a cold glare before walking out the door. Before leaving, he sneered, "Since you're not renewing, pack up everything that belongs to you. When I come back, I don't want to see a single trace of you in this house." What Daniel didn't know was that over the past few days, I had already started moving my things bit by bit to my small apartment. All that was left were a few insignificant odds and ends. After he left, I walked around the house, erasing my presence one piece at a time. The green potted plants on the balcony, the wooden carvings in the living room, the acupuncture device I bought for Daniel, the throw pillows on the couch, the little bear figurine in the bedroom, the computer and charger in the study, the towels and slippers in the bathroom. When we were living together, I never noticed. But looking at it now, I realized our lives had become intertwined in ways deeper than I'd imagined. After all, we'd been married for 5 years. These scattered little things were the best evidence of our years of intimate, day-to-day life. I gathered them into a large bag and tossed it into the neighborhood's garbage station. After everything was taken care of, I stood at the entrance with my suitcase, took one last look at the spotless home, and smiled as I shook my head. No matter what, I was grateful to Daniel for accompanying me these past 5 years. My best friend Ollie was waiting for me downstairs. As I loaded my suitcase into her car, she sighed and said, "I honestly thought you'd just keep putting up with it. You've endured 5 years, why give up now? All of a sudden? Why give up now?" I didn't know either. It just suddenly felt too exhausting. When I married Daniel, I knew he didn't love me, but I always thought that time could overcome everything. And even though I told myself that he was simply the best option available to me at the time, aside from not loving me, he was still the one who helped me with my adoptive parents' accident, handled everything, ran around for me. Looking at him back then, I truly believed that sincerity could move mountains, that one day we'd grow used to each other's presence. And maybe, just maybe, he'd come to love me. I never understood how a man could be so heartless and yet so loyal. Heartless toward me, loyal toward Angelica. Of course, in all the years Daniel and I were married, Angelica never contacted him. None of those melodramatic soap opera cliches where the ex suddenly reappears after the leads get married ever happened with her. So I knew very clearly, I was not the tragic heroine of some angst-ridden romance novel, and Daniel was not the male lead. He just, truly, simply, didn't love me, no matter how much I gave, no matter how well I took care of him. If someone doesn't love you, they just don't love you. I'm not sure what I was hoping for, but for a long time, I used to quietly stalk Angelica's social media. She barely posted, maybe 2 or 3 updates a year, usually photos of her research work or celebrating with family. She always looked radiant. In every photo, she had that confident, gracious smile, carrying herself with the calm composure unique to highly intelligent people. She looked truly happy. Every time Angelica posted one of her rare updates, Daniel's like would always appear instantly. It felt like, just like I used to quietly follow his updates, he was silently keeping an eye on Angelica's. I remember once, on Daniel's birthday, I had carefully prepared a surprise celebration for him. After everything was over, he got drunk. When we got home, he sat down on the sofa, right in front of me, and called Angelica. I heard a calm, distant female voice on the other end. After listening quietly to Daniel's drunken rambling and expressions of longing, she simply said, "Happy birthday, Daniel." Then she paused and added, "Daniel, stop calling me. You need to learn to cherish the person in front of you." After she hung up, Daniel clutched his phone and curled up on the couch. Still drunk, I stood 3 steps away in the living room, watching the scene unfold. I don't even know what I was thinking at the time. I envied Angelica, calm, intelligent, goal-driven. She knew exactly what she wanted in life. Maybe if I were a man, I'd fall in love with her too. But I was Robin. I was born ordinary. The only dramatic event worthy of a protagonist in my life was being abandoned at birth. Luckily, I was adopted by a kind deaf-mute couple. We were poor, but they loved me dearly. I never had grand ambitions. I never dreamed of dedicating my life to some research that might one day save humanity. All I ever wanted was a simple life, get a good job, earn a high income so I could give my adoptive parents a better life, marry someone decent, have a child, and grow old in peace. When did I really feel like I couldn't take it anymore? That it was time to let go? Maybe it was that night when Daniel called Angelica to ask if she and her husband would renew their marriage contract. I stood silently in the corner, watching Daniel sit there heartbroken on the couch. And then, out of nowhere, I thought of something that had happened a long time ago. It was shortly after Daniel and I got married. His family had just bought this big house for him. Daniel was very busy, so I ended up handling almost everything, the renovation, the move, on my own. I was also working long hours at the time, and had been considering a job change anyway. There were several headhunters trying to recruit me in the industry, so eventually I quit my job, thinking I'd finish settling the house before going back to work. I found the construction team myself, bargained with the foreman, scouted every furniture store, picked out each piece, compared options over and over, and slowly worked through every design detail with the interior designer. Back then, it didn't even feel exhausting. I was just happy that I was finally building a home of my own. God knows how much I'd longed for a place I could truly call home. From renovation to the final move, I did almost everything alone. On the last day of moving, Daniel was there. He carefully carried a few boxes into the room. Later, while I was unpacking, I accidentally broke a pair of ceramic mugs. That was the first time I saw Daniel truly lose his temper. Actually, I had also fallen from a high chair while unpacking, and my left arm twisted at a strange angle, probably broken. But at that moment, under the dazzling crystal chandelier, the look Daniel gave the shattered mugs made me forget my pain entirely. His eyes were red as he glared at me and practically exploded. "What the hell is wrong with you? That was made by Angelica and me when we were 16 at Teoxaquin, and now you've destroyed it. Are you insane? Why are you touching my stuff?" I was pale with shock, lying on the floor, and the only thing I could do was instinctively apologize. He stood there seething with rage. Later, I thought, if I hadn't been a woman, given how heartbroken and furious he was, he probably would have punched me right then and there. He glared at me for a long time, holding back his anger, before finally crouching down and carefully picking up the broken pieces of the ceramic mugs with visible heartache. After he left, I was still lying on the floor. Only then did the searing pain in my fractured arm register in my brain. I was drenched in sweat from the agony. My leg was probably bruised too. I struggled to call a car to take me to the hospital. After I got back, I remember apologizing to Daniel over and over for months for those 2 mugs. After that, he moved all his personal belongings into the study and installed a password lock on the door. I never knew the password. The day the lock was installed, he told me coldly, "From now on, don't touch my things without permission." For a long time, I thought I'd forgotten about that whole incident. Maybe I was so hurt at the time that my brain activated some kind of defense mechanism and buried the memory. I didn't know why it resurfaced again now, but I remembered exactly how I felt when Daniel said those words. It was like something inside me went hollow, and I knew that no matter how many years passed, that void would never be filled. Standing in the hallway, watching Daniel call Angelica, I suddenly thought of that memory. I glanced at the password lock on the study door, and just like that, 5 years of suppressed exhaustion and humiliation in this marriage crashed over me like wave after wave of suffocating tides. Suddenly, I was just tired. This was never my home, because whether it was Daniel or this house, there was always a part of it I could never reach. More than a sense of belonging, I felt like a parasite here, something that would eventually have to leave. That was the moment I changed my mind. That was the moment I decided I wouldn't renew the marriage with Daniel. But now, facing Ali's worried gaze, I couldn't explain all that. After all, we had once gotten drunk together, and compared to Daniel, her boyfriend seemed like an even bigger disaster. She once told me, half drunk and completely serious, "Robin, when you get to my age, you'll realize all that love bullshit is just that, bullshit." Daniel's good-looking, rich, and clean. Sure, he has a girl from his past, but at least he's not out screwing around. Trust me, he's better than 99% of men out there. Just make it work. Ali's love life was a complete mess. She'd been played by the same ex over and over again. That advice came from the bottom of her heart, so I thought long and hard before I finally said, "I met someone." Daniel knew about him too. He was an intern who had joined our company a year ago, the son of one of our major shareholders. I had mentored him for a while. He was like an enthusiastic little puppy, chasing after me for a whole year. He never crossed any boundaries. He was just young and straightforward, too inexperienced to hide his feelings. He thought he was subtle, but his warmth and affection were obvious in everything he did. I always kept clear boundaries with him, but even now, he still sends me messages every single day, buys me gifts, regardless of whether I respond or not. He does it every day, without fail, consistently and quietly. He never said anything outright, so I never gave a direct rejection. Once, to make him give up, I begged Daniel to attend a company dinner with me. After a lot of persuasion, Daniel finally agreed. After the dinner, as we walked to the parking garage, Daniel laughed and asked, "The young man sitting across from you, is he into you?" His eyes looked like they wanted to skewer me and roast me alive. I thought he might be upset. For a second, I even foolishly hoped he was jealous, so I rushed to explain myself, but before I could finish, he just chuckled, breezy as ever, and said, "So what? Isn't it a good thing that someone likes you? You don't need to drag me into this kind of stuff next time. Waste of my time." I remember looking at him then. It was like a bucket of cold water being poured straight over my head, chilling me to the bone. Only someone who didn't care, someone who didn't love you, could be so casual and indifferent. Before I decided not to renew my marriage with Daniel, I received a text from Mario. He asked, cautiously from the other side, "Robin, has it been 5 years since you got married? Are you and your husband renewing your contract?" I didn't reply at the time, but the day I made the decision not to renew with Daniel, I finally answered that message. I said, "We're not renewing." He started typing, then deleted it, typed again, deleted again. After about 10 minutes, he suddenly called me. I picked up. On the other end, his voice was that of a young man, nervous, stammering, rambling without a clear point. "I'm really happy. I mean, the last time I saw your husband, I already felt like he didn't deserve you. No, I'm not gloating or anything, I feel sad for you, really, but you deserve someone better. I'm sorry. You must be feeling terrible right now. I shouldn't be bothering you. Sorry. I don't even know what I'm saying. Do you want me to come keep you company?" I listened quietly to the voice on the other end. Just a year ago, this was the same intern who had gone toe-to-toe with a sly client, arguing smartly for 30 minutes without backing down. And now, he was tripping over his own words like a shy schoolboy. I don't know why, but I suddenly felt a little better. I cut off his nervous rambling and said, "I've been busy lately, a lot going on." His voice fell, even through the phone. I could almost picture his eyelashes drooping with disappointment. After a moment, I added, "But if you really want to comfort me, maybe, when I'm free, you can take me out for a nice dinner." On the other end, he came back to life in an instant, stumbling over his words as he excitedly said yes over and over again. "Only someone who truly cares, only someone who likes you, would be this careful, this awkward, this afraid of messing things up." That's a kind of emotion I had never experienced from Daniel. When I hung up, I had the faintest smile on my lips. Suddenly, I wanted to give it a try, maybe because of obsession, or maybe just curiosity. I wanted to experience the kind of steady, unwavering devotion Daniel once gave to Angelica, that deep affection he never gave me. I had always been curious, what made him love someone like that, year after year, even after she had already left? And now, while he still loved someone else now loved me like that. I wanted to see what it felt like, to be loved that way, fiercely, openly, and consistently. That's why I gave up on Daniel. I wanted to try a new choice. Chapter 3. Mario's affection was indeed passionate and focused. When Ollie pulled up in front of my apartment building, I had just pushed open the car door when I saw Mario. He was crouched beside one of the marble pillars by the entrance. As soon as he saw our car stop, his eyes lit up and he walked over. Ollie had just popped open the trunk when he had already lifted out my suitcase. After greeting him, I asked, "What are you doing here?" He smiled, flashing a perfect row of 8 teeth, a bright, boyish grin. "I figured you might need some help moving today, in case there was anything heavy. I wanted to be here just in case." I frowned slightly. I don't particularly like it when people make decisions for me without asking, but his intentions were kind, so I quickly relaxed. Still, that tiny moment of displeasure didn't escape him. He handed the suitcase over, smiled again, and said, "Looks like there's not much heavy stuff after all, and since you've got a friend here to help and probably have a lot going on today, I'll head out. Just call me if you need anything." Then he added, "I sent you a WeChat message before I came, maybe you were too busy to see it. I thought maybe you could use a hand, so I figured I'd drop by and check." That brief flicker of annoyance instantly turned into guilt, but he acted as if he hadn't noticed anything at all. He held up his phone and made a little gesture, smiling, 24/7 available, whatever you need. "You can call me once you're settled in. Dinner's on me." On the way upstairs, Ollie nudged me and whispered, "That handsome kid looks pretty promising." I smiled and said nothing. Later, Ollie helped me unpack and organize. By the time we were finally done, it was nearly 1 a.m. We washed up and changed into pajamas, then collapsed side by side on the couch, heads leaning together. She asked, "So what now? What are you thinking about that little intern? You're not just using him as a rebound, are you?" I shrugged casually, keeping my tone light, not thinking that far ahead, just seeing where it goes. Ollie chuckled, but a moment later, her voice turned a little wistful. "Figures, the ones who are loved always have nothing to fear." I paused. She was right. The ones who are loved always act with impunity, just like Angelica to Daniel, Daniel to me, and now, me to Mario. Thinking back to the afternoon, the way he crouched outside the apartment building waiting for me, I suddenly felt a pang of guilt. I, of all people, should know how painful it is when someone takes genuine feelings for granted. So after a moment's hesitation, I picked up my phone and sent Mario a message. "Sorry about this afternoon." He replied quickly with a smiling emoji. "No worries. You were busy." Honestly, I hate people who don't respect boundaries, and I probably crossed a line showing up like that. Then, maybe sensing I might still be feeling guilty, he changed the subject and sent me a spreadsheet. It was a list of restaurants he had selected, complete with their distances from my apartment and my office, the type of cuisine, signature dishes, and even his own comments and analysis. He said, "I didn't know exactly what you'd want to eat, so I picked places across different cuisines. You can just choose one, or if you're not sure, check off a few, we can go one by one. Pick the one you're most in the mood for first." I scrolled up and down, reading the chart. It was impressively detailed: Japanese, French, even lesser-known options like Nepalese and Spanish. All 8 major Chinese regional cuisines were included. There were noticeably more Sichuan options. He probably knew I liked spicy food. Not much time had passed since I jokingly asked him to treat me to a fancy meal. He must have started working on that spreadsheet right after I said it last night. As I scrolled through the list, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I couldn't help but compare it to how things were with Daniel. For all these years, I was always the one who went to great lengths for the sake of a casual remark. This was the first time someone went through such effort, just to make me happy. It's not that no one ever liked me. Even after I married Daniel, I'd met people who hinted at their interest in me. But those types always came with an agenda, it was clear from the start. The moment I showed even a bit of coldness, they would get the message. Step back to a safe distance. No one wanted to waste effort on a lost cause. In this fast food age of modern love, everyone is afraid of losing. Every emotion given must be calculated. Every investment, time, effort, money needs to be within a controllable range. If there's no response within that range, people pull out quickly and move on to the next option with the same rhythm. But Mario was different. He made me feel, how do I put it, like I suddenly understood something I never had before. So this is what it feels like to be loved, openly and sincerely, by someone like me. He didn't mind being ignored. He didn't mind if his time, effort, or money ended up wasted. He just wanted, genuinely, purely, to offer me the best of everything, just like I had been. Once, when I was young, honestly, even though I acted decisive and composed when I chose to leave Daniel, deep down, I still carried confusion and hurt. I couldn't understand why. Why, after 3 years together and 5 years of marriage? Why, after everything I had done to nurture and maintain this relationship? Why couldn't I warm Daniel up, even just a little? I wasn't someone who clung to people or begged against their will. Daniel clearly enjoyed what I brought to the relationship. My efforts were never a burden to him, never something he showed impatience toward. He was the one who chose me back then. He was the one who wanted to be with me. So why, after 5 years of pouring warmth into a stone, did it stay cold? For a long time, I blamed myself. I wondered if I was doing something wrong, if the way I treated him was flawed. Maybe my love and care weren't enough. Maybe that's why, after all these years, he still couldn't forget Angelica, why I couldn't move him, even a little. But after experiencing how Mario treated me, I realized that wasn't it. Being liked, carefully, respectfully, sincerely, attentively, by someone you don't dislike, it actually feels pretty good. Not being able to move Daniel wasn't my failure. That thing that had gnawed at me, puzzled me for so many years, suddenly, it untangled. Even that last shred of bitterness I still carried toward Daniel faded away in an instant. Turns out, yes, people really can let go of someone all at once. I looked at Mario. Before, I had only wanted to know what it felt like to be loved like this. But now, I didn't want that sincerity to go to waste. At the very least, in whatever happens next between Mario and me, I want to treat it seriously, with genuine effort and an open heart. Maybe because I hadn't replied for a while, Mario sent me another message. Is it that you didn't like any of them? If not, that's okay. I'll keep looking for good food spots. I sent him a smiling emoji and replied, no, they're all great. I actually like them all. On the other end, it was as if I could sense his visible relief. He quickly replied, that's great. Once you're done with everything, just let me know the time. I'll take care of the rest. I said okay. And after a moment's pause, I added, let's wait until I finish the paperwork first. It was my way of showing respect to both Daniel and Mario seemed to understand exactly what I meant. After a long pause, he replied, I can wait. Chapter 4. Somehow, my heart suddenly felt calm. It was like an invisible force had taken root inside me, giving me infinite courage to face the unknown ahead. Like something I once read, to be loved, truly loved, is the most powerful currency in this world. With that, you fear nothing, not even with bare hands. And once the heart settles, the mind stops overthinking. I worked as usual, and slept peacefully every night. Until the 5th night after I'd moved into my new apartment, Daniel called. It was a little past 2 a.m. His voice on the other end was cold and emotionless. You left something behind. I'd been asleep, and his call dragged me from my dreams. Still groggy, I reflexively asked, what? Daniel's voice was perfectly clear, as though 2 a.m. wasn't an unusual time to be wide awake. He lowered his voice, annoyed, and repeated, you still have things here. That woke me up a little more. I turned on the bedside lamp and leaned against the headboard. What things? I asked. His voice was tight, clipped. Even through the phone, I could picture that expressionless, impatient look on his face. His tone dripped with sarcasm. Everything is your stuff. I told you 5 days ago to take everything. Are you doing this on purpose? Daniel gave a cold laugh. Trying to leave things behind as an excuse? Hoping to give yourself a way back in? I blinked, confused. What? He kept sneering. You think you've suffered so much these past 5 years, right, Robin? So now you're trying to play hard to get? Using this whole not renewing thing as leverage to manipulate me? You think that'll scare me? He scoffed. You picked the wrong move, Robin. That crap doesn't work on me. You don't want to renew? Fine. Who do you think you are? You think I actually care? Either come back and withdraw the cancellation, or leave for good and never come back. There's something about late-night calls that messes with your brain. It took me a minute to fully process what Daniel meant. He actually believed that my decision not to renew was just some kind of manipulation tactic. In fairness, from his perspective, It wasn't entirely unreasonable. Just a month ago, I had still been nervously asking whether he'd agree to renew. Sometimes, when you're beyond words, you laugh. I let out a half smile and cut him off. Just throw it out. There was a pause on the other end. Maybe he didn't hear me clearly, so I repeated. Just throw everything out. Whatever you find later, toss it. No need to call me again. There was a long silence before he finally shot back stiffly. You want it thrown out? Do it yourself. Otherwise, you'll just use it as another excuse to get close to me. Fair point, I suppose. I sighed and asked. When are you free tomorrow? Let's just do a full handover. His voice was like ice. I'll be home before 5 p.m. He seemed to emphasize it on purpose. After 5, I have dinner plans. If you want your stuff, come get it early. If not, I'll toss everything. I gave a soft mem. There was a pause on his end. He waited a moment longer, then hung up. The next day, I was right on time, arriving around 1 p.m. Not too early to disturb his rest, and not too late to interfere with his dinner plans. When he opened the door, his expression was icy. He leaned mockingly against the wall, arms crossed, looking at me with a sneer. What? Just 6 days and you've already forgotten the door code? I glanced at him. My first reaction was actually mild surprise. Daniel didn't look nearly as good as he did on his social media. Dark circles under his eyes. His complexion tired. Maybe he just partied a little too hard these past few days with his friends. I didn't say much. With a calm face, I offered a suggestion. You should probably change the password, just in case anything happens. Don't come blaming me. Then I paused and asked, what exactly did I leave behind? He turned and walked back into the house. Find it yourself. You're not expecting me to pack your things for you, are you? I had no choice. I took off my shoes and stepped in barefoot. After all, my slippers were no longer here. I searched the bedroom, bathroom, living room, and dining area, but couldn't find anything that belonged to me. Eventually, I stood in the living room and asked Daniel, who was sitting to the side. I can't find anything. Daniel, what exactly did I leave? He lowered his head, looking a bit absent-minded, just staring at the floor. I followed his gaze. He was looking at my feet, noticing my eyes on him. He abruptly looked away, saying nothing. Then, in silence, he stood up, walked to the bedroom, and brought out a teddy bear. I said nothing either. That bear was something Daniel had bought for me. When we first got married, I had a habit of clinging to him in my sleep like a koala. Before falling asleep, I would consciously try to keep my distance. But by morning, I'd always be curled up in his arms, maybe because the AC was too cold at night. Daniel had woken me up several times because of it. But I couldn't break the habit. Eventually, he bought me this bear and placed it in the middle of the bed. Over time, I unconsciously clung to the bear instead, and the habit faded. I froze for a second, then reached out to take it, but Daniel didn't let go. I tugged again, and he lowered his head and suddenly asked, are you mad at me for how I treated you before? I looked up at him. He didn't look back at me, just kept his grip on the bear, head down. His voice was completely different from the cold, stiff tone of last night's phone call. He sounded tired, almost worn out. With a weary sigh, he said, stop doing this, Robin. I admit it. I admit I didn't treat you well before. I'm exhausted. I don't have the energy or the will to change things. I gave in. Come back. Whatever you want, I'll agree to it. Just, let's go back to how we were. For some reason, I felt like laughing, using this bear to pull me back in, and now these tired words of surrender. It wasn't love. It wasn't guilt. It was just that he didn't want his life, his routines, to be disrupted. Daniel, who had always stood above me, always acted superior, finally lowered his tone and softened for the first time. But not because he truly wanted me back. He just didn't want to disrupt the rhythm of his current life. The home that was always spotless and orderly. The 5 dishes and 1 soup that changed flavors to suit his taste. The bed always clean and warm. The gentle voice. The thoughtful care. Shirts in the closet always perfectly ironed. No creases. Ties neatly paired with suits. Even the wife, elegant, well-mannered. educated, and pretty enough to please anyone's eyes. That was the stability he wanted. He never seemed to realize what it cost me to maintain that stability over the years. He wanted things to stay steady, predictable, no surprises, no deviations. He wanted me back. Not because he loved me, not because he couldn't live without me. How could I not laugh? After all these years, the very first time he acknowledged my presence, my value, my effort, it came under these circumstances. I laughed, and my voice was genuinely tired, just like his. I sighed and said, "Daniel, we can't go back. That stability you want? I don't want it anymore." I let go of the bear he had been gripping so tightly, and looked him in the eyes. He stared back at me, stunned. It felt like, for the first time in all these years, he was truly looking at me, like he was trying to see my soul through my eyes. And I met his gaze, honestly, trying my best to make him believe I wasn't lying. No tricks, no threats, no games. "Daniel, I just genuinely don't want to be with you anymore. I won't be using excuses like this again. And for tomorrow's follow-up survey, I still won't renew." His face gradually turned pale. For the first time, he looked truly lost. The bear slipped from his hand and fell to the floor. I smiled at him, even kindly, and offered one last parting line. "Take care of yourself. And if possible, there's no need for us to see each other again." The next day, as scheduled, the Marriage Investigation Bureau came for the post-cooling period visit. When they asked for Daniel's final decision, he looked at me for a long moment, then said, "I still want to renew." I kept my expression calm, my tone even as I looked at the investigator and said, "I still don't." In the first week after our 5th wedding anniversary, Daniel and I were officially divorced. Chapter 5. Mario and I went out for that dinner. He seemed nervous but was incredibly attentive. Napkins, water, adjusting the atmosphere so it wouldn't turn awkward. He kept worrying whether the restaurant he chose suited my taste. I couldn't help but laugh and reassured him. "I really like it. Don't be nervous." He laughed too, realizing how tense he'd been, finally relaxing into his chair. "I was just scared that if I messed up the first meal, I'd be put straight on your blacklist." I smiled. "No way. I'd give you a 90. He tilted forward, genuinely curious and eager to learn. "Where did the other 10 go?" I looked into his eyes, smiling. "The remaining 10 are for your room to grow." He caught on, raising his eyebrows slightly. A bright, confident grin slowly spread from the corners of his lips all the way to his eyes. "I'll make sure to earn that full score soon," he said. Mario and I didn't officially get together until 7 months later. He gave me something precious, a sense of security, of being loved wholeheartedly. Truthfully, the biggest thing I learned from my failed marriage with Daniel was how to love myself. I hadn't planned on getting into a new relationship so quickly. I knew I still had a lot to learn. Mario said we could learn together. With him, conversations were always met with responses. Offhand remarks were remembered and turned into thoughtful actions. I didn't have to do anything to earn his affection. He wanted to cook for me, to clean with me, to change the sheets, to iron shirts side by side. Aside from our jobs, we did almost everything together. After we got together, even Ollie joked that I'd gotten lazier. She said I didn't know how to cook anymore, barely lifted a finger, and maybe even gained a little weight. But somehow, I looked more beautiful than ever. She laughed softly, her voice full of sincerity. "You're doing really well now. I'm really happy for you." Honestly, I didn't fully understand it either. I once asked Mario, "What exactly do you like about me?" I expected some vague, cliché response like you don't need a reason to love someone. But without missing a beat, while washing dishes, he replied matter-of-factly, "What's weird about liking you? You're gorgeous, you're brilliant at your job, and you're so gentle. It'd be weird not to like you. There's no such thing as love without reason." He loved me for all the things that were good about me, things I had long forgotten, my self-worth, my strengths after 8 draining years with Daniel. He named them, one by one, with certainty. "You're just amazing. So of course I really like you." I wrapped my arms around his waist from behind. His hands were still covered in dish soap. but he turned his head and gently kissed my forehead. He always knew how to catch me when I was falling. Oh, right. While I was with Mario, I ran into Daniel once. It was just a regular weekday evening, nearing the Mid-Autumn Festival. He was waiting outside my apartment, holding a box of mooncakes, the flavor I liked best. Homemade by his family. After my adoptive parents passed away, I rarely celebrated traditional family holidays. I had treated Daniel's family like my own, but they'd always been distant with me. So in later years, I started volunteering for overtime on those holidays, just to avoid the awkward gatherings. Daniel was standing at the door. The moment he saw me, he straightened up, pretending to be nonchalant as he handed me the box of mooncakes. "My mom asked me to give you these," he said. Then he hesitated for a moment, as if unsure whether to speak, before asking, "Tomorrow's the Mid-Autumn Festival. Do you have any plans?" I looked at him and gave a polite, distant smile. "Thanks, I have plans." Mario's parents had invited me to celebrate with them. During the new year, they even gave me red envelopes. It felt like family. Daniel blinked, caught off guard. It was clear he hadn't expected that answer. He let out a small then an awkward oh, and just stood there, looking at me, as if waiting for me to say something more. I opened the door, took the mooncakes, and said courteously, "I'll accept this, but don't bring gifts in the future. I'm not inviting you in for tea either. I don't want my boyfriend to get the wrong idea." His smile was strained. "You already have a boyfriend?" I nodded. "Yes." He left after that. The second time he came by, I was out walking the dog with Mario. I saw him from a distance. He saw me too. He stood there, watching us from afar. But to his credit, he didn't come over. With Daniel's background and appearance, it's not like he'd have any trouble finding a new girlfriend. The first month after our divorce, his family had already begun arranging blind dates with women from similarly privileged families. But if both people come from comfort and neither understands compromise or sacrifice, maintaining a household becomes difficult. Then again, that's no longer my concern. What did concern me was that Daniel suddenly started liking all my social media posts, every single one. The day I officially announced my new relationship, he changed his profile picture to a solid black icon and posted to his WeChat moments. Sometimes we get too used to something, and only when it's completely gone do we feel the dull ache of too late regret. Out of curiosity, I checked the likes on Angelica's latest few posts. Daniel's profile picture was nowhere to be seen. He hadn't appeared in her likes in a long time. Mario noticed and grew uneasy. He asked me, "What does he mean by all this?" I turned to kiss him gently on the eye and didn't answer, because Daniel's meaning no longer mattered. That's life. We say goodbye to the people in our past, so we can meet someone new. Daniel never learned how to say goodbye, and because of that, he'll always be losing things. But I'm not like him. I will say goodbye, bravely, and I'll cherish the people beside me who deserve to be cherished. I'll never miss the chance again. Story 2. After being forced back into the wealthy family, Victor had no choice but to fulfill the arranged marriage with me. However, his heart had always been with Emma, the fake heiress. Even the son I had given birth to after a difficult delivery followed her around, calling her mommy. On my 25th birthday, I sat alone at home, waiting. The night dragged on, and at midnight, as if on cue, Emma's social media post appeared. In the photo, Victor was smearing cream on both her and our son's faces, the picture of happiness, as if they were a perfect little family. By dawn, I could no longer endure it. I packed my suitcase and left. Just before my flight took off, I received a call from Victor. His tone was angry, while our son could be heard in the background, whining about wanting the breakfast I had made. Calmly, I replied, "I'm leaving. Go over the documents and sign them." The documents in question were the divorce papers I had already signed. I thought to myself, they would both be much happier without me. Chapter 1. On my 25th birthday, I got up as usual to make breakfast. As I sent Victor and our son Lucas off, I hesitated for a long time before finally speaking up. "Today is my birthday. Can you and Lucas come home early?" I knew full well that today was also the birthday of his first love, Emma. Asking Victor to choose between us was akin to humiliating myself. But I couldn't help it. When the doctor issued the critical condition notice, my grandmother, frail and worn, wiped away my tears and softly whispered, "Don't cry, my dear. I promised I'd stay until your birthday. Grandma won't leave before then." I hurried over to the car window before they drove off. Standing just outside, I begged in a hoarse voice, "Just come back for dinner. That's all I'm asking." All I got in return were their identical cold, indifferent faces. The next moment, the car sped away, leaving me standing frozen in place. It took a long time for me to come to my senses. They didn't explicitly refuse, which meant there was still hope. That afternoon, I went to the supermarket and bought all of Victor and Lucas's favorite foods. Afterward, I went to the hospital to pick up my grandmother. By the time the food was laid out on the table, the sky had already darkened. My grandmother carefully took out the gift she had bought for Lucas from her bag, a limited edition toy race car. "Lucas should be here soon," she said, her eyes fixed on the door, eagerly waiting. I tried to persuade her to eat, but she stubbornly refused. Birthdays are meant to be spent together as a family. We can't start without them. From 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., the food had gone cold, and still, there was no sign of either father or son. I dialed Victor's number again. After countless rejections, the call was finally answered. The first thing that hit me was the sound of laughter and joy on the other end. "Do you need something?" Victor's voice was laced with impatience. I forced a bitter smile. "Grandma's here. Please come home and spend my birthday with me, okay? I'm begging you, Victor." "Jessica, don't forget your place," he sneered. "Today is Emma's birthday. Don't ruin my night." Of course, Emma, the childhood sweetheart he grew up with. And I was nothing but the woman who came back and ruined her life. I stood there, frozen, staring out the glass door of the balcony, meeting my grandmother's worried gaze. How unfilial I must be, I thought. Even now, I'm still making her worry. "Come eat the cake, Victor." Emma's sweet, playful voice rang out on the other end of the line. "The first piece goes to our Lucas, okay?" Then I heard my son's innocent voice. "Thank you, Aunt Emma. You're the best. I wish you were my mommy." My heart tightened, and it felt like a dull, suffocating pain wrapped around my insides. "Jessica," Victor's breath hitched, as if he wanted to say something more. But for me, it didn't seem necessary anymore. I quickly hung up, desperately trying to shut out everything from the other side of the line. I walked back into the living room and met my grandmother's concerned gaze. Weak and pale, I tried to explain. "Grandma, Victor is busy with work, and Lucas had an extra class at his tutoring school." She nodded slowly. As if she believed me, she gently pulled me down to sit with her. We sat across from each other, taking large bites of the birthday cake. The frosting was incredibly sweet, so sweet it made my chest feel tight and heavy. The soft light reflected off her silver hair, like a candle that was burning down to its final moments. "Jessica, you must smile. Be happy," she said with a tender voice. "You are Grandma's treasure." Her voice trailed off, and suddenly, she began coughing violently. In the next moment, the hand that had been gently resting on my cheek fell limp, as if the life had suddenly drained from her. Chapter 2. After Grandma was rushed into the emergency room, I was left sobbing uncontrollably, collapsing helplessly onto the chair in the hallway. Suddenly, my phone lit up with a notification from social media, Emma's latest edited video. On the screen, it was the perfect image of the happy family I had once dreamed of. Lucas's cheerful voice rang out, "Happy birthday, pretty sister." He leaned over and kissed Emma on the cheek. I instinctively reached up to touch my own face. Unlike Emma's well-preserved, radiant appearance, my face, after giving birth to Lucas, was marked by nothing but age and exhaustion. The scene shifted, and there was Victor, a man who was always so serious. But now, his face was smeared with cake, and his eyes glimmered with affection and laughter. So, he wasn't always cold and distant. When Emma was the one beside him, he could be warm, gentle, and full of tenderness. An overwhelming wave of fatigue washed over me, like a rising tide swallowing everything in its path. I turned off the screen. The light above the emergency room remained on. a persistent glow that seemed never-ending. Tears blurred my vision, and at some point, I drifted off into a fitful sleep on the hard bench. In my dream, I was back to the year I was found. At 17, I was wearing shoes with holes in them, trying desperately to hide my worn-out pride and dignity. 17-year-old Victor stood at the top of the stairs in a gray turtleneck sweater, looking like a prince. He looked at me in surprise, asked if I was cold, and led me into the living room. I followed behind him, my heart pounding like fireworks exploding in my chest. But then, Emma appeared, sobbing, and knelt before me. "Jessica, I'll give everything back to you," she cried. From that moment on, the only thing in Victor's eyes when he looked at me was disdain. "Ma'am, we did everything we could. I'm so sorry. You can go in and say your goodbyes now." The nurse's voice pulled me out of the dream. Chapter 3. From leaving the hospital to arriving at the crematorium. Everything felt unreal, like I was watching it all happen to someone else. It wasn't until they started pushing Grandma towards the cremation furnace that reality struck. The white cloth was lifted, and the flickering flames illuminated her pale face. It finally hit me, my only family, the one person who truly loved me, was gone from this world. Someone who had been so present in my life now reduced to a small box of ashes. I walked out, numb, clutching the box to my chest. When I got home, the housekeeper looked at me, startled for a moment. "Ma'am, why are you back? Didn't Mr. Victor say he was taking the young master on a trip?" I understood immediately. They had taken Emma with them on their little vacation. In the past, I would have lost control, screaming and calling to demand answers. But now, I'm exhausted. I swiftly packed my things. Standing at the entrance of the villa, I turned back for one last look at the place I had called home for the past 6 years. Memories of my first night here with Victor came flooding back. It was our wedding night, but everything was ruined because of a phone call from Emma. Victor had been so anxious that he kicked me out of the car. On the phone, she had been crying, saying she'd been kidnapped. "Victor, I've already given you up to her. Why does my sister still do this to me?" I walked for hours in my high heels, alone, through desolate roads. By the time I reached home, my heels were bleeding profusely. After finally taking a shower and readying myself for bed, Victor barged into the room, furious. It was the first time I had seen him so out of control, as if he was on the verge of losing something precious. His eyes were red, and he demanded answers. "Jessica, I told you that little Emma is my bottom line. How dare you hurt her?" He said Emma's hand was ruined and that she would never be able to paint again. That was the first time I saw him cry. And that night, he forced me under him, moving over me like a machine, devoid of any affection. We were doing something intimate, yet my heart was torn apart, leaving nothing but pain. He refused to kiss me, avoided my face and lips, sinking his teeth into my collarbone as if he wanted to devour me. "Isn't this what you wanted? To be my wife? Is this enough?" His dark eyes, so close, were filled only with disgust and clarity. The way he looked at me then was exactly how he looked at me the year I was brought back into the family, a look that made me feel utterly exposed and humiliated. The sound of a car horn snapped me out of my thoughts. The rideshare driver was waiting. Chapter 4. The train sped forward, and the scenery outside the window rushed past in a blur. After eating a few cups of instant noodles and sleeping for 2 nights, the train entered the western region. Vast green fields stretched out, with herds of cattle and sheep occasionally running by. When I was little, Grandma used to lull us to sleep with stories of her youth in the Northwest. Now, I was finally bringing her back home, where she could rest in peace. As I was pushed along by the crowd while disembarking from the train, my phone rang. It was Victor. I figured he must have finally returned from his vacation and remembered me. His voice was calm on the other end. "Where are you? We should get a divorce." I didn't answer his question. I only made my request. "What are you talking about?" His voice wavered for a moment, surprised. He probably thought I was joking. After all, in the past, whenever he mentioned divorce, I was the one who would break down in tears, begging him to stay. But back then, I was only holding on for Grandma's sake. Grandma is gone, and none of this matters anymore. "Jessica, haven't you had enough?" Lucas's stomach hurts, and he's asking for the porridge you made. He changed the subject, his voice full of impatience. I could almost picture him on the other end, frowning with a stern expression. I said, "Let's get a divorce, Jessica. Do you really think this will get attention? It's just a birthday, isn't it? I'll make it up to you, all right?" See? After 6 years together, even now, Victor still treats my departure like a joke. There's no need. The divorce papers are already signed and on the desk in the bedroom. I stated everything calmly. He finally realized I wasn't joking, and he let out a cold laugh. "Jessica, don't forget about the prenup. If you keep this up, you won't get a single penny." Oh right. Victor has always thought he could control me because he believes I love money. In the past, whenever he warned me, I would humbly apologize and back down. But now, Grandma is gone. What good is that money to me? In the past, I naively believed I could move him. I exhausted all my energy trying to warm his heart. I tolerated his excessive behavior for the sake of our child, making excuses for him over and over again, suppressing the bitterness in my heart. But not anymore. Neither of them, father and son, are worth my compromise. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him further and hung up the phone. The world was finally quiet, with only the occasional voice messages from my son. His tone went from commanding at first, to softening, and eventually, to a teary voice. "Mom, what are you doing? Dad is already working so hard. Mom, when are you coming back?" I glanced at the messages and deleted them all. As for Victor, I knew he was waiting for me to regret and beg him to take me back. But why would I regret it? After leaving them, I felt like I had been pulled out of stagnant water, full of life again. In the following months, I taught children to read in a small village school. Before I knew it, it was New Year's. The village chief invited me to his home to make dumplings with the children. Despite the scarcity of resources, they slaughtered a pig and brought out their most precious things to treat me. Amid the children's laughter, the phone rang, vibrating in my pocket. It was Victor. Chapter 5. I answered, and there was silence on the other end for a long time. A dry, hoarse voice finally came through the phone. "Happy New Year." The sound of fireworks drowned out his voice. Just when I thought the call had been disconnected, the man spoke again. He cleared his throat, sounding somewhat uncomfortable. "Grandfather wants to see you. Didn't you tell Grandpa about our divorce?" I asked in return. "Jessica, the company is about to go public. Can't you think about the bigger picture? So that's how it is." "No, I can't. You were the one who said from the start that this marriage was a mistake. Now I don't love you anymore, and I don't want to continue." I spoke decisively. 6 years ago, a marriage contract bound Victor and me together. I should have realized from the start our marriage wasn't because he loved me. It was for the sake of family cooperation. And no matter how much favor Emma had, in Grandpa's eyes, she was still just an intruder. When the family needed me again, they came looking for me. I never wanted to get involved in anyone else's relationship, and I wanted to leave it all behind. But Grandma got sick and needed money, and my so-called biological father threatened and coerced me. The night before I left with Grandma, they drugged the milk I drank before bed. That was the night Victor and I ended up in bed together. In a haze of confusion, perhaps the memory stirred something in Victor, and his voice grew angry. "Jessica, there was no need to continue this conversation any further." I was about to hang up when I heard Lucas's voice, nasally and urgent, calling, "Mom." His tone was rushed, filled with anxiety. Seeing that I didn't respond, he awkwardly added, "I'm sick." In the past, whenever he got sick, I would be frantic, staying up all night to care for him. But now, I only responded with a flat "Oh." "Mom, when are you coming back?" Children can't hide their emotions well, and Lucas's voice began to quiver with tears. "Mom, why aren't you answering my messages? It's so cold out here." "Lucas, come inside," came Emma's concerned voice. So the divorce wasn't even finalized yet, and Emma was already spending New Year's at their house. The cold winter wind stung my face, making me want to go inside. "I won't bother you anymore." "Wait," Victor hurriedly explained. "She came on her own. so he's capable of giving explanations now. Huh? But before, when I agonized over these little details, Victor would just watch me fall apart, calling me a madwoman. Mom, Dad and I got you a birthday present. Lucas's innocent voice chimed in. A birthday present. Huh? That was half a year ago. I found it while sorting through clothes, tucked inside Victor's suit jacket pocket. It was a necklace, encrusted with gemstones. I thought it was a surprise for me, so I pretended not to know, but I waited and waited. In the end, I only saw it worn around Emma's neck. Back then, perhaps I was heartbroken, wronged, and deeply saddened. But now, when I think back, it feels as if I'm just a bystander, completely at ease. As Lucas cried and complained, all I felt was irritation. First of all, I'm not your mom anymore. And secondly, if you're sick, there are doctors. Coming to me won't help. Chapter 6. Time flew by, and after the spring festival, the children returned to school as usual. During the lunch break, I patiently braided the hair of each little girl, holding their hands and organizing them to go downstairs for lunch. Teacher, what are we eating today? Today, we're having... Just as I reached the staircase, a voice stopped me. Mom. It was Lucas. He had grown taller, but he no longer had that arrogant air about him. He just stared at me blankly. I chose to ignore the desperate longing in his eyes. Teacher. Who is he? Don't be silly. She's our teacher, not your mom. A mischievous boy spread his arms wide, blocking Lucas from approaching. Perhaps Lucas had never been treated like this before. His eyes reddened as he looked at me, like a frightened little rabbit. I turned away and led the children downstairs. Is everyone hungry? Let's go eat first. Yes. After serving food to the last child, I felt a small hand tugging at the corner of my shirt. Lucas rubbed his grumbling stomach and spoke in a pitiful voice. Mom, I'm hungry. If you're hungry, go eat something. For a child to come all this way on his own, Victor had to know. So, I continued singing nursery rhymes with the children and soothing them to sleep. During this time, Lucas stubbornly stood by the door. It wasn't until one of the children had a nightmare and woke up crying that I hurried to hold and comfort him. Don't be afraid. It's just a bad dream. But Lucas rushed over and pushed the child out of my arms. It was the first time I had seen him behave so poorly and emotionally. He had always been strictly taught, mature, and smart, knowing how to please others in every way, behaving like a little adult, but he had always been cold and distant toward me. His mother. I'm so hungry. Mom. He raised his voice and repeated himself, afraid he would wake the sleeping children. I walked over and handed him a bowl of porridge. Lucas's eyes immediately lit up. He took it and started eating quickly with big spoonfuls. But in the past, no matter how much love and care I gave him, it was all ignored. Lucas was born premature. The night I had a difficult labor with him, Victor was abroad, attending an art exhibit with his first love. Having almost lost him, I held my frail baby in my arms and swore to give him the best of everything. I learned all kinds of recipes, just to make sure he had the right nutrition during his growth. No matter what I did, he would only eat a little. His face remained expressionless, neither liking or disliking it. Once he finished eating, I pulled him aside. Why are you here? Does your family know? He raised his eyes, nervously playing with his fingers, finally mumbling in a low voice. The school is having a parent-teacher meeting, and a parent needs to attend. You should talk to your dad about that. I'm not your mom anymore, and I'm not obligated to attend. I squatted down to meet his gaze, and I could see the tears welling up in his eyes. After all, he was still a child, and he finally broke down crying. Dad says he's busy, and am I not busy too? I gave up my entire career for this family. When Lucas first started elementary school, I went to attend a parent-teacher meeting. The moment he saw my unadorned face, his expression immediately darkened. At the end of the day, he endured the mocking gazes of other kids as he pulled me toward the door. Frowning, with those eyebrows that were strikingly similar to Victor's, he showed the same disgust. All the other moms are so beautiful. What else can you do besides cooking at home? You really embarrass me. That look, it was identical to how my biological parents sized me up when I first returned home. Wearing rough, cheap clothes. It was exactly like that time I first went to a Western restaurant with Emma. She acted spoiled, and Victor naturally cut the steak for her, handing it over with a loving smile. Two worlds separated by one table, awkward and clumsy. I tried to copy him, using the knife and fork with all my might to cut the steak, but with the wrong posture and too much force. There was stubbornness in my heart. He wiped the corner of Emma's mouth, then happened to look up. Just that one glance, it was like a balloon being pricked, and all my forced strength deflated into embarrassment. The plate overturned, sauce dripping everywhere, a complete mess. Victor handed me a napkin. I made an excuse to go to the restroom. Just a few steps away, I heard Emma's tearful voice, like an anxious little rabbit. "Victor, are you going to be taken away by her too?" I instinctively froze in place. Victor's playful tone disappeared, and he made a serious promise. "Little Emma, I only love you." As for her, if it weren't for Grandpa's instructions, I nearly ran away in panic, because only by doing so, by not hearing those piercing words, could I pretend not to know. At 18, I was proud yet insecure, eager to please everyone, just hoping for a little love. At 25, when new life was born, my world began to revolve around Lucas. Now, I live for myself. Chapter 7. Seeing that I didn't respond, Lucas went from crying loudly to silently shedding tears. When the lunch break ended, I continued teaching as usual. Lucas sat quietly in the last row, listening attentively. It's almost laughable. There was a time when I would tutor him. Back then, he would only coldly push me away. Dad said he'll hire a top school tutor for me. After the lesson, it was time for exercises. The children occasionally raised their hands to ask about their pinyin homework. Lucas raised his hand too, looking at me eagerly. I deliberately ignored him. He borrowed a notebook from someone else, holding his pencil tightly as he approached me. "Mom, I don't know how to do this." His poor acting was so obvious. It could be seen through at a glance. I didn't say anything and took the pencil, showing him how to do it on the paper. "Thank you, Mom." He smiled sweetly. When I looked up, I saw Victor. I didn't know how long he had been standing by the window. When he saw me, his lips parted slightly. I ignored him, pulled the curtains, and continued helping the children with their homework. By the time class was over in the evening, it had started to drizzle. After sending each child home, the sky had already darkened. When I returned to the school, my colleague Luis handed me an umbrella with a smile. He and I were the only two teachers at the school. This was his 5th year here. "Let's walk together," I invited. "Jessica, you've worked hard. We were worried at first that you wouldn't adapt to this place." "Of course not. As your senior, I can't afford to fall behind you." When I first found out that Luis was my junior at university, I thought it was a funny coincidence. We joked and chatted along the way, and soon we arrived at the teacher's dormitory. Suddenly, Lucas ran under my umbrella. "Mom, you're back." Rain had soaked the hair on his forehead. After a full day of being bothered by him, I was tired. I didn't respond and turned my head inside. "Jessica, are you refusing to come back because of this pretty boy?" I turned around. Victor had just gotten out of the driver's seat and was standing in the rain. Luis looked uncomfortable because of Victor's words. I responded with a cold smile. "Do you think everyone's like you, sneaking around with other women during their marriage?" Victor froze at my words, stunned. His emotions began to escalate. "You're really going to stay in this dump and abandon me and our son?" "Jessica, you have to explain yourself to me today." "All right." Some things indeed needed to be cleared up. Victor followed me into the dormitory. Father and son looked awkwardly around the cramped room, exhausted after a long day. I poured myself a glass of water. Just as I was about to drink it, a large hand gripped my wrist tightly. He used his free hand to shove his phone in front of me. It was a photo of Luis and me playing with the kids during class. The picture was taken recently when a journalist came to interview us. There was nothing inappropriate in the photo. And so, I looked at him as if he were an idiot. Victor, in a fit of rage, pinned me against the wall. "You mean I can only bring it up if I catch you two hugging?" How fragile and suspicious he is. Oh, so when it happens to him, it actually bothers him? But when he and Emma were caught in close photos together, traveling intimately, whenever I showed any discomfort, he would accuse me of overreacting and being dramatic. Victor, after the divorce, we'll live our own lives. You won't meddle in mine, and I won't interfere in yours. Isn't this the freedom you wanted? He glared at me, his eyes bloodshot. In the next moment, he flipped me onto the bed, pinning me down. My ankle was touched. He pulled a band-aid from his pocket and carefully applied it to the back of my heel. His movements were quick and precise, so much so that it left me momentarily dazed. You were hurt. At this distance, I could smell the scent of his clothes. The pine-scented cologne tickled my nose, making me sneeze. Are you sick? He asked, genuinely concerned, but it was like talking to a wall. We were together for 6 years, and every time I asked him to change his cologne due to my allergies, he ignored me. Because Emma liked it, Victor never changed it. So now, I didn't need this superficial concern either. Get out. After kicking them out, I finally got a good night's sleep. Chapter 8. For the next 2 weeks, Victor didn't leave. Sometimes he would sit in front of his laptop, working. One night, I heard a knock on my door again. Mom, I'm scared of the thunder. It was Lucas. In the past, whenever it rained, I would hold him and soothe him to sleep. But this time, I ignored him. With Victor around, he would naturally take care of the child. But the next morning, when I opened the door, I found Lucas still standing there, holding his small pillow. When he saw me, he sniffled. After a few days here, Lucas was no longer the clean and tidy boy he used to be. His clothes were wrinkled, and there was dust on them. He looked utterly pitiful. I knelt down and told him, Victor taught you this, didn't he? Playing the sympathy card won't work. Crying and whining won't get you anywhere. What would a child know? If it wasn't for the adults suggesting it, how would he even think of doing this? Furious, I dragged Lucas back to Victor, because Victor's company sponsored the elementary school. He was quite popular here. The village chief arranged for him to stay in the best house. When I entered, the light bulb was on, casting a dim, orange glow. Victor was on the phone, frowning as if something wasn't going well. When he saw us, he rubbed his temples and immediately hung up. There's an issue at the company. Lucas will stay with you for now, I said bluntly. Take care of your son, and don't let him bother me again. Lucas immediately started crying and throwing a fit when he heard my words. Refusing to leave. I used to feel sorry for you, but not anymore. Tears only matter to those who care about you. In the end, Victor, growing impatient, urged them into the car. I thought that would be the last I saw of them, but during class, I received a call from Victor's grandfather. He sounded anxious. Jessica, has anything happened to Victor and Lucas? I heard there was a landslide. Grandpa had been kind to me, and his only beloved grandson was here. At this moment, I couldn't bring myself to tell him about the divorce. I simply reassured him, don't worry, Grandpa. Out of gratitude for his kindness, I went to check on Victor. As soon as I stepped into the village clinic, I saw Victor lying on a stretcher. The moment he saw me, he tried to get up. Jessica, I knew you still cared about me. I pressed his shoulder down. If you don't want to die, don't move. Where's the doctor? There was only one doctor, who was busy tending to other injured people. I grabbed some gauze and started bandaging the bleeding areas. Are you a doctor? Someone asked curiously. I got injured on the mountain once. My leg was almost broken, but I fixed it myself. Even the doctor was surprised. I joked with a smile. It happened during Victor's company retreat. After dropping my son off at kindergarten, I rushed over, only to see Emma sitting in the passenger seat. They were laughing about something funny. That whole day, I was stranded on the mountain, injured. When Victor arrived, the first person he carried on his back was Emma. His voice was filled with concern, overflowing with tenderness. It's okay now. Don't be scared. He gently patted her back, comforting her. Emma cried out in pain. I stood quietly to the side, so quiet I was almost invisible. Victor seemed to only just notice my presence. For a moment, he looked conflicted. But when he heard Emma's muffled groan, he quickly made a decision. I'll carry her down first. Jessica, hang in there. He hurried down the mountain, never once looking back at me or noticing how pale I was from blood loss. Hang in there. In his eyes, I was always the one to be abandoned. I didn't feel the same sense of hurt and grievance as before. Now, the nurses around me were amused. I've never seen a patient so good at healing themselves. You might just take my job, one joked. I casually responded to the doctor, remaining calm. Only Victor's face grew darker and darker. Finally, with a hoarse voice, he spoke. You were hurt back then? I didn't know. I thought you weren't seriously injured. I cut him off. It's all in the past. You asked me why I can't forgive you. I'll tell you now, every time you chose to abandon me. As I spoke, Victor's face turned whiter and whiter. Chapter 9. The family soon sent someone to pick up Victor. Lucas cried out, Mom, come home with us. Of course, I had to go back to finalize the divorce. Since I couldn't communicate with Victor, I would speak with Grandpa instead. Grandpa, it's time for this marriage between Victor and me to end. You know, a forced marriage will never be sweet. Hearing my words, Grandpa began coughing violently. Jessica, did that boy do something wrong to you? Grandpa immediately grabbed his cane, ready to strike him. You little brat, did you wrong her? Victor knelt on the ground, silently taking each blow without saying a word. Watching this scene, I finally spoke. Grandpa, I'm the one who wants to leave. I handed the bank book and card I had found to Victor, but he refused to take them. In the end, I placed them on the table. This is the money you sent me all these years. I didn't spend it, and I never accepted your so-called compensation. Back then, Emma had taken my painting and entered it into a competition. Afraid I would expose her, Victor used his influence to send me abroad, perhaps as a way to keep me quiet. Over those years abroad, he transferred money to me every year. He stared at the card, looking stunned. Then all these years, how did you? In those years in Paris, I worked 3 jobs a day, washing dishes, doing anything I could, no matter how hard or poor it got. I never touched that money, because once I did, it would mean accepting that so-called compensation. I wasn't wrong, and you know the truth better than anyone, don't you? You ruined me so terribly. What makes you think I would ever forgive you? I hadn't intended to cry, but the surge of emotions made tears fall uncontrollably. Grandpa, just learning the truth, clutched his chest in distress. You ungrateful brat. How could you destroy Jessica like this? I'm sorry. I'll repay everything I owe you. Victor's voice choked with sobs, and he looked utterly pained. A few days later, I understood what he meant by repayment. Victor publicly exposed Emma's plagiarism to the media. With the evidence complete, she fell from a renowned artist in the industry to a notorious plagiarist overnight. Chapter 10. On the day I left the city, Emma found me, in the bright, spacious cafe. She had lost her usual radiance. I ordered 2 cups of coffee, and when the waiter brought them over, she smiled and pushed hers away. I'm pregnant, and I'm afraid it's not good for the baby, she said. Unlike her usual arrogance, I saw a hint of anxiety and fear in her attempt to boast. Oh, then I wish you and your family of 4 happiness. The blessing slipped out of my mouth. This time, it was genuine, but Emma's expression changed suddenly. Turning around, I saw that Victor had appeared behind me without me noticing. He picked up the steaming hot coffee and poured it over her head. It was the first time I had ever seen her so disheveled. Victor, how can you do this to me for her? She was in such pain, unable to understand why the man who once unconditionally adored her had vanished overnight. After Emma ran away crying, Victor called after me. Jessica, the child she's carrying isn't mine. She's lying. There's nothing between us. He went on and on, trying to explain. I glanced at my watch. I have a flight to catch. I'm leaving. You hate me so much that you have to leave? In that moment, his posture collapsed, like the life had been drained out of him. You're overthinking it. I don't love you, but I don't hate you either. I cut him off sarcastically and got into the car. Victor's car annoyingly trailed behind mine the whole way. When I was about to pass through security, I saw him standing at the departure gate with Lucas, frozen in place. A passerby asked to borrow a pen, and I casually handed one from my bag. No need to return it. Thank you. He rushed off, excited and hurrying to catch his flight. Victor's expression darkened because that pen had once been a gift from him. It was back when he was going abroad to attend a summer camp. The traffic was terrible, so I got out of the taxi and ran the rest of the way. Sweat drenched my back. I saw my reflection in the glass. My first attempt at makeup was now completely ruined. Emma, looking polished and flawless, walked over, glancing at my disheveled appearance. Why are you just getting here? The flight was moved up. Didn't Victor tell you? Urged by his grandfather. Victor handed me something hastily. It was just a postcard with a few words, to Jessica. Victor's expression was awkward, and I knew he hadn't prepared anything for me. I smiled and said, "Thank you, I like it." A flicker of complex emotion crossed his eyes, but I didn't pay attention. What was he upset about? Why does it matter if I give away the pen he casually gave me? As the plane took off and passed through the clouds, everything on the ground became small, just like the past, now left completely behind. Epilogue. After Jessica left, Victor found her journal in the trash. He realized how she had lived in France all those years. Over time, she had gone from a budding artist to making a name for herself in the art world. Strangely enough, even though Victor had plenty of money and time, he no longer dared to seek her out, because she had once said, "Can you please stop bothering me?" The most out of control he ever felt was when he rushed to the mountains overnight. But he lingered at the door, watching as she laughed and smiled at someone else in a way she had never smiled with him, a happiness she had never had around him. She had painted her experiences there and sold the paintings, donating the proceeds to the children in the mountains. He was the buyer behind the scenes. The village chief had once invited him, saying they wanted to thank him. That day, Victor nervously waited, but when he saw her walking out alongside Luis, he cowardly ducked back into the car. "Where's the buyer?" he heard her ask. "He just left," the village chief explained. Outside, the wind and rain were heavy, the air misty. As Lucas grew older, he continued to write letters to her relentlessly. The mountain roads were long, and it took a month for them to be delivered. He would share his life with her. "Mom, I'm doing my homework well. Mom, I started learning piano today." His handwriting evolved from clumsy and crooked to neat and tidy, but not once did he receive a response. The night before Jessica's art exhibition in France, Victor canceled all his meetings. It was an important negotiation, and even his friends called him crazy. He simply asked his secretary to book 2 plane tickets. He and Lucas flew to Paris overnight. It was a snowy day. The street lights flickered on. The man stood silently in the snow, covering the boy's mouth. They were standing in the corner, facing the glass window. Inside was the painting, depicting a family of 3, all smiling brightly. So this is how it was. So this is how it is. His heart felt like it had a gaping hole, with a blizzard sweeping through it. From then on, the person he loved was gone, like the morning clouds, never to be found again.